Okay, we are live. Let's take a look at this. We can mute it. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, everyone, this is an experiment. We're going to go live for the recording of this, shooting from the hip. So, time to share it out with the homies. Just went live. Damn, look at all that hair. Okay, sweet. Let's close the door up here and let's do this. Time to go live. Okay, so we're just getting set up here. Let me just share the stream out. Copy. Let's see if this works here. Okay. I'm going to share this out. We're going to get started in about 10 minutes here. Let me just going to share this out with some of the homies, let them know what the deal is. Oh, I got to start recording over there. Okay, we're good. We'll start doing that. Okay. Here we go. Let's share this out. Gonna blast it out on Twitter. Let's do a little Facebook action here. Okay. A little Twitter action. Blast this out. Okay, here we go. Again, we're gonna get started in about 10 minutes fully for the show, but in the meantime, I'm just gonna blast this out to the homies. Dale's hitting me up. Okay, so let's do some of this. Okay. Here's the. Okay, blasting this out. Yeah, thank you, Dales. I know I'm just sitting there. I'm still getting my shit together. Experiment. Okay, people, I am going to be starting the show. I'm just sharing this out. Thanks, Dales, for the support. Okay. Thank you, Dales. Okay, sharing this out to the film crew, homies. Okay, film crew shared out. Let's go to some of the PCT homies. Okay, Lucas family, even though my mom doesn't like how much I cuss and doesn't really like the show, it's chill. Love you, Mom. I'm going to share that. Live for the next 2 hours. Bada bing. Okay. 2 hours. Let's see. I think those are all the. Oh yeah. Let's get the Savages group chat. Okay, we are live. I appreciate that, Pa. I'm gonna be getting started in about 10 minutes. I'm literally just blasting this out to the homies. Just trying to get this out to the homies right now. For the next 2 hours. Come checking out, boys. Need the support. Okay. Appreciate you coming in, Pa. You're my boy. Let's see. Is there anyone else? I need to go. Okay, I'm gonna tweet this out now. Let's see. We got, okay. Again, we're gonna go live in about 10 minutes. Go live with shooting from hip number 5. Oh, I gotta tell my producer, Charlie, I'm doing this. This is off the cuff here. Okay. Stop by. Okay. Outline, boom. Yeah, this is okay. We're gonna get started in about 10 minutes. I keep saying 10 minutes. Just hold on here. Just getting everything set up here. Want to blast this out. Almost done. God, my back is hurting. My back. Okay. Add this. Boom. Okay, it is tweeted. Now let's see with the Facebook trolls, get them to come out. Okay. Boom. Blast out to Facebook. Then I gotta tell my homie Charlie, who edits all this stuff. Yeah, don't worry, it's an experiment. Next time when I go live, it'll be live. But let's just see here. Boom. About the next 2 hours. Okay. Okay. Your story, newsfeed, bada bang. Okay, we're good. Just 5 more minutes here. We'll get the show started. Okay, let's see what we got. Send this out to the homies. Okay, we're almost live. Charlie, my main man, my producer. Just got to text him, and then we are gonna get this show started again. I appreciate you. Appreciate your patience. Going live. Show. Experimenting. Okay, boom. Okay, we got 4 people. We are live. Appreciate that. Okay, I think we're all good. I probably missed it somewhere, sharing out somewhere, but we're fine. We're shooting from the hip here. It's an experiment. Life's an experiment. Everything's an experiment. Okay, we got 4 people on. I appreciate that. Let me just start recording on the damn, this glare is rough. Let's see, that's a little better. Yeah, we're good. Okay, I'm just gonna be right back. Give me 1 minute. Just gonna start recording on the phone, and we are live. This is airplanes, gasoline, and sun fumes and gasoline. Okay. Boom. Boom. Okay, we're good. All good. Closed out of everything. Okay, we are live. Okay. 30 seconds. Okay, we are live. We got 4 homies on live, baby. Okay, I don't know who that guy is, but we respect him. Okay, a little sound check here. You're seeing the inner workings of how this goes down. So, by the way, the audio is coming from my computer and not my mic. Unfortunately, I don't have the setup for that yet, so you'll have to bear with me during these trying times. Okay. Buses coming, they're plainly smell a fume. Okay, that's how I'm gonna open up shit. Okay, we got 3 people on. That's 3 more than we had last time. We're huge right now. We're live. Okay, let's turn this down. We're good to go. So we'll sound check. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Okay, that's live. If you don't play the intro music, I'm out. Oh, dude, I can't play the intro music right now. Damn it. Okay, 1 sec. Okay. Okay, we got 5 homies on. There we go. Appreciate everyone stopping by here. Okay, I don't have the intro music, but I'm gonna do my own little intro music here. But I appreciate the shout out, Sauce. So, people in the chat, I won't really be looking at that too much right now. Once I get in the zone, I'm gonna kind of rip it. But this is an experiment. I appreciate the people stopping by right now. Again, the audio is gonna be from my computer, not my mic. So let's do one more sound check. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Okay, we are live in 3, 2, 1. Buses, trains, and airplanes leaving. Smell the fume of gasoline. And come to find the silence in you. Come to find the silence in you. And we are live, baby. Everyone, this is Dick Lucas with Shooting from the Hip number 5. And here I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what we're going to be covering today. Chathan, shut your mouth. Okay, here's what we're going to be doing. Topics. We're going to run through some personal tips, like how to help build grandparents, some financial tips. I've been talking to some people during these times. They got questions, some virus facts, and learn more about viruses. They're absolutely insane. I'm going to rant about wedding rings for a second. We're going to talk about the politics of pandemics. The Economist had an epic post. I'm going to talk about that. McKinsey has a good report on the business implications of COVID-19. We're going to run through that. Some blockchain developments. Shit's hitting the fan left and right, but there's still shit happening outside of COVID. We're going to talk a little bit about blockchain, and then the American geopolitics of fear. Zeihan had an interesting post. Airline stock buybacks. We're going to talk about what the Federal Reserve is doing. So we're going to go through a lot of stuff here, and what the deal is. I'm going to mix it up this time. I'm going to, rather than kind of break things out in little kind of sections, like first we're going to cover COVID, finance, whatever. I'm going to mix things up a bit. So, I won't talk about any one thing too long. I'll break it up with a different topic. Like we threw a wedding ring rant in there at one point. So we're going to do that. Again, we got 6 people on live stream. Appreciate. Yeah, by the way, a few housekeeping things. So the single best thing you can do to support the podcast is share this out. So I'm currently experimenting with a live. I'm doing YouTube live right now. I'm still going to have an edited version, still going to do the podcast, still going to do the edited video, but we're just going to experiment with the YouTube live. Single best thing you can do, if you think anyone will find this interesting, share it out, Facebook, Twitter, text your homies if you think they'd find this interesting. Put a lot of energy into it, so would appreciate that. It's honestly the best thing you can do to support this. You can subscribe on YouTube. wherever you get your podcasts. There's also a newsletter you can support with a monetary contribution. This costs about $500 a year to run, and then half of it I'm splitting that with Charlie Finley, who's the producer. Joe Stu, thanks for joining us. We got people on the live stream. I love it. So yeah, there's more information. There'll be more information in the about section later. Go to the website if you're interested. Yeah. So this guy's asking. Sad's asking, do I need the mic? So the mic, I have the mic right now. It's a comfort mic. Yeah, I have the mic right now because I'm recording the podcast, but I can't hook it up to my computer yet for YouTube Live. So we're working on this. It's an experiment. So yeah, I call it a comfort mic. But I'm not really gonna be looking at the YouTube comments too much right now. I just kind of got to go into it, got to go through it. But I appreciate everyone who's joining. And we got the sun coming out as soon as we go live, baby. Okay, this is legit. Okay, so first things first, let's just go through the personal tips here. So a lot of things, I think it's easy to get caught up in all the, what the world is doing, how governments are responding, shit like that. We forget that we got to call Grammy and Grampy and maybe order DoorDash for them. So I got 4 grandparents right now, blessed to have 4 grandparents. One of the things I'm doing, just call in, check in on them. One of my grandparents, a little older, DoorDash is huge. Order food for them so they don't have to go out. It is on the expensive side, so I understand not everyone can do that, but even something as simple as helping them get groceries, go for it. Another homie, Sapa, he's setting up an iPad in his grandma's house, I believe, so he can video chat with her. So little things like that. I think let's remember to do those things, not just be glued to CNN. Let's remember to, help the neighbor, help the Grammy and Grampy, help hell, even your parents that are older, man. Even yourself, even your friends of your age. Let's think about that. Yeah, just regards to how to do all this. A lot of people are at home, and I recently just started doing this whole at work from home thing about a few months ago. So I've got a little bit of a jump on kind of how to deal with it. I would say the number one thing is kind of compartmentalize. It's really easy to wake up, check Twitter, check CNN, check the news, and just drain your brain, and then forget you actually have to do things for yourself. Again, the biggest lever you can pull to help your situation is not going to be on CNN. It's going to be things you do to improve your own situation. Okay, so don't forget to do that. So what I like to do is in the morning, first half of the day, let's just get everything we need. For me, what do I need to do personally to get things done? Like, what do I need to do for work? Get all that stuff done. What do I need to do for my personal, any personal item I need to do? Taxes, even though you got to extend, think about doing your taxes. Think about doing those things first. Yeah. Oh, also, this is a good time. Wi-Fi. You probably have more people under one roof. Simple things like reconfiguring the Wi-Fi system. I just did it at my house. I'm at the in-laws place over here. I just got a new Aero system for them, and everyone's working from home, and it's a hell of a lot easier when the Wi-Fi works really well. So I recommend the Eero, EERO. Seriously, order it, upgrade your Wi-Fi. If that's an issue, it's worth it. It's a worth it endeavor. So I love this this quote from this guy Thomas Sowell. He's a senior fellow at Stanford. This guy was a Marxist, and then he interned for the federal government, and then was like, "What the hell's going on here?" And then he went total free market. So he's a bit of a bit of a hardo, but I think he's got an interesting thing here. He says there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs, and I just keep thinking about that because I think. We talk about there's a lot of different solutions that are being proposed to not only how to maintain the virus, but also how to maintain, keep the economy stable. And there's no such thing as a silver bullet, right? There's no such thing as a solution. So when people say, this is what we need to do, boom, 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 2 trillion in stimulus tomorrow, rip the Band-Aid off, and then lock down everyone for 2 months. Well, things need a balance, right? You need to weigh the pros and cons of doing these things. It's really easy to just say, this is the solution, but let's talk about the trade-offs, because the trade-offs are real. It's pretty easy for people to just work from home. By the way, I should say this: work from fucking home if you can. Obviously, people seem to have gotten the message now. A week ago, I was a little harder on this. Work from home if you can. It's social distance. Don't go out. Don't Go out to get food, but keep it to the bare essentials. It's the single best thing you can do. Okay, so let's we're all in this together. That's how it works here. There's no solutions, only trade-offs. So I'd just be careful when you're reading a lot of things like, oh, this is what we need to do. Just consider the trade-offs. I mean, a lot of things people say, let's shut down the whole country for 3 months. A lot of people, even if they get a stimulus check for like, $1,300, that's floating through Congress right now. Some people need to get back to work. Some people have kids to take care of, and they can't afford childcare. So it's easy to say shut down everything for 3 months, but we need to balance that. Some of the things I've been seeing. The easiest way to do that, to allow kind of a balance, to get more data. We need more testing. Obviously, we're starting to ramp up in the United States. We're starting to ramp up our testing capabilities, but there's still work to be done. The more we can test, the more data we can get. We can find out where the hotspots are, and then we don't have to down the whole country. Because if one city doesn't have an outbreak and we've tested everyone in that city, it's like, okay, we're good. Businesses can start to open. People can start to go back to work. So, think about, I think, the second order effects when you think about how we can do the solutions on when we approach some of the solutions on some of these things. Use this as an opportunity, and also for yourself. You're now working from home. You're going to be changing things up. For a lot of you, for many of you, you have an extra hour and a half, 2 hours a day because you don't have a commute anymore. What are you going to do with that extra energy? My girlfriend partner, she said, I've never worked out, gotten 8 hours of sleep every day, and flossed every day. So like, I just thought that was epic. Like, what can you 2 hours extra time because you're not commuting, because you're working from home? What are some things you can build into your system now that you couldn't before? Never let a tragedy go to waste. We talked about that last time. Okay, so now those are just some personal tips. Let's get into the meat more of this. We're going to talk some financial stuff with regards to this. So I'm in the fortunate position that some of my friends trust me with asking financial questions. This is something that it's kind of a personal hobby. I really like reading about this stuff. I like thinking about retirement. I like thinking about how to put my money to work. I like thinking about these things. I've always liked that. I used to iron my money when I was like 5. I think that's the sign of a serial killer or something, but I would iron the bills. It's not like I love money, but I do love thinking about, how to put it to work. It's a good servant, but a poor master. But that doesn't mean we can't make it work for you, make it a really good fucking servant. So people, friends reach out to me. They kind of trust me with this stuff. So I'm getting a lot of questions. What should I do right now? The short answer is do nothing. If you have money on the sidelines that you're waiting to put in, go for it. If you are making 401k contributions, IRA contributions regularly already, keep making those. No money you have in the stock market should be. Any money you have in the stock market shouldn't be needed within the at least 5 years. So if you're worried about your money in the market right now, maybe you should think about your portfolio allocation. Maybe it should be a little bit more conservative. Damn, this is fucking hot. I'm gonna burn up in here. I'm gonna be sweating a hell of a lot. Okay, we're good here. The main thing is I don't sell. Okay, don't panic sell, and don't panic buy. So people, people are telling me, Delta's a good stock to buy, or Warren Buffett put a lot of money in. There's some stocks are getting hit super hard, and the one thing I like to think about this is 2 things. One, I wouldn't make individual stocks more than 1 to 5% of your total net worth. Don't be careful with that, because it's easy to buy a stock low, but it turns out that buying a stock is half the battle. The other part of the battle is when do you sell it? So just because you bought it low, now you got to think about when to sell. I don't like thinking about problems like that. I don't think about the only individual stocks I buy for fun. I don't buy because I think I'm going to make money. And the second thing, to be clear, is over time, there's professional investors on Wall Street that get paid to do this. They're some of the smartest fucking people in the world. Instead of curing disease, they're trying to make some quiche on Wall Street. You're competing with them. So over time, Benjamin Graham, he's talked about this. He's a kind of legendary investor. Warren Buffett shouts him out a lot. But basically, he says that over time, if you look at the numbers, the amount of actively traded mutual funds, so funds that are actively managed, i.e. buying individual stocks, that actually beat the index, which is just buying buying the market is very few. Every year it basically decreases. By 20 years, it's like 14% of funds. And these are people that are professionals at it. So listen, go ahead and make some stock moves. I'm down for it. Just don't do it. Just be very careful about buying individual stocks, but keep doing your thing. Keep contributing your 401k. I have a homie who hit me up. He's just working on getting his 401k set up, and I'm like, dude, now's the perfect time. The market's depressed. Just get those monthly contributions in there. Like, it ain't rocket science. Let's who can do this. Okay, another thing. So I like to, when I think about the market, I like to put it, the way I like to put it in perspective is the market is currently, so as of close on Friday, the S&P 500 index is at 2,304.92. So that is where it was exactly 3 years and 1 month ago. So I think February 2017 is where it was. So if you think about it like that, in February 2017, were we freaking out that the market was at 2,300? No. Now, granted, it's gone down a lot. It's gone up, and then it came back down to that. So obviously, there's cause for worry. I get that, but just put it in perspective. So a little bit more perspective. Global financial crisis in 2008, when the market shit itself, it went back over 10 years. So it went back to like price levels from 1996. And when I say the market, I'm talking about the S&P 500, which is the 500 biggest companies in the United States. It's a good gauge of how the economy is doing. So we've regressed 3 years and 1 month. Global financial crisis was over a decade. So just to put it in perspective. Now, I'm not saying that the market's not going to go down. I'm not saying anything. I don't know the market. I don't know if it's going to go up or down. I don't think anyone does. That's kind of the beauty of it. But I'm just saying, let's just keep things in perspective, keep calm, don't do anything drastic, and we'll get through this. So another thing, you hear people say, the same people that say timing the market doesn't work, and I've seen them. I follow some of these guys on Twitter. I'm like, okay, these guys are legend. But the same people that say timing to the market doesn't work, just steadily, slowly invest your money every month. Just put some away. Don't try to time the market. The same people that say that also are talking about how depressions are where wealth is made. Like, this is when people can buy right now. That's when real wealth is made. I just find it kind of funny because it's contradictory. You can't both believe that don't time the market, just put your money in the market every month, and then also like, now's the time to invest. First of all, if you've been sticking to a long-term financial plan, you shouldn't have a lot of cash on the sidelines right now. Sometimes people come into cash, you sell a house, you sell some stock, you whatever, and you have all this cash, and I get it. You have some cash you come into. But most people, the vast majority of people, I mean, a lot of people aren't even exposed to the equity market. So put that in perspective. I mean, 40% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency expense. So I get that. But I'm saying most people, they have some money in their checking account, and then that covers a few month expenses maybe, and then hopefully I recommend 6 months expenses basically in cash, checking, 2 months expenses in checking, 2 months in the safety net account, which is like kind of a more conservative, a little bit of equities in there, but kind of a more conservative way to still build wealth, but also not expose yourself too much to the equity market. Betterment, I recommend Betterment to a lot of people. They have a safety net account that does this, and also in a safety, like a cash, like a savings account. But most people are just putting a little bit of money away each day, each week. So what scares me about people do is they like, oh, now's the time to get in. Well, if you're going to overexpose yourself, and let's say you have 6 months saved, in quiche, and then you start throwing fucking, you bring yourself down to 2 months because you're trying to time the market and buy stocks when they're low. Be careful with that, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know when you're going to need that cash. So another thing that I think people don't value is that people get wealthy during if they make big moves during when the market's depressed, but they also get wealthy because they didn't fucking have to sell. They didn't have to sell any of their equities for fire sale prices. So if you have, fucking 6 months of cash, basically liquid assets, stuff that you can support yourself, and the market shits itself, and all of a sudden you're out of a job, and it takes you 3 months to get another job, or it takes you 3 months to move in with your folks because to wind down your lease or whatever. All of a sudden you didn't have to sell because you had that buffer. So not having to sell right now is also a huge win. I know people say, yo, buy, but also not having to sell is a huge win. weather the storm. Okay. So that's just some of the financial stuff, and then we're going to get into some of the virus. We're going to get some of the virus stuff. That'll be next. I'm reading this book called Spillover. It's called Spillover: Animal Infections in the Next Human Pandemic by David Allman. I believe that's how it's spelled, or that's how it's pronounced. It's a super interesting book about viruses. Damn, I am sweating up in here. Damn, this is going to be it's a marathon. Let's do this. Okay. So we're going to get into viruses. There's some super interesting stuff about viruses that I had just no idea. Now I'm learning about them. And no, I'm not an expert. I'm just going to basically read what this guy's saying. I'm not going to make my own assertions. I try not to do that with things I know nothing about. Also, just a couple more things I want to talk about before we get into the virus talk is read source material. So a lot of the times you'll see like, McKinsey put out a report, and then you'll see a journalist that's giving you a spoon feeding overview of the report, or the Fed's doing action X, Y, and Z, which we'll talk about a little bit about what they've done, and the New York Times, the Washington Post, or someone's giving you a rundown of what it is. Now the rundowns are important because not everyone's an expert. I get that. But what I would say is don't be afraid to read the source material. A lot of the times you can just read. This stuff isn't crazy complicated. Like, I don't know all the stuff the Fed's doing, but you can read their short little memos. They have little memos they put out on what they're doing. Read those. I encourage you to do that. And for this McKinsey report, they put out a report. Don't read an overview of the report. Just read the report itself. They're often not that long. They're in plain English. Read them yourself. Don't let someone give you a rundown on them. Another thing, there's a guy named Ben Thompson of Stratechery. I talk a lot about what he says. I think he's super smart. I think he really puts technology and information, he puts it all in perspective. One of the things that he said, he's been saying that with the destruction of gatekeepers, Twitter, for example, Twitter allows people to, let me turn the gain down a little bit, and I'm going to speak a little louder so in case the computer can't hear me here. One of the things that he observed was that early on in the the pandemic, epidemic is local, pandemics when it goes to other countries. One of the things he said was that he noticed on Twitter that early on the amount of misinformation on Twitter when this wasn't a big deal was low. Well, then once it became a big deal and everyone was getting on board that holy shit, this is a big fucking deal. You know what? I might move the umbrella. It is fucking hot. You know what? I'm gonna move the umbrella because I'm literally dying. Hold on 1 second, people. Hold on 1 second. Ooh. Okay, that's better. That is better. Okay, here we go. So one of the things he said was, there's more misinformation as this really started to pick up, and he made the point that. So I'll just quote him. He says, "I suspect we see the same sort of dynamic with information on social media in particular. There's very little motivation to create misinformation about topics that very few people are talking about, while there's a lot of motivation." Money, mischief, partisan advantage, panic to create misinformation about very popular topics. So that's an interesting thing. So when something gets super popular, there's more of a reason to hijack it and try to misinform people. I think he also said in this post something about it's like people used to write viruses for PCs, Windows more than they would for Mac. Why? Well, there's more PCs. And this is still the case. There's more PCs than there are Mac. So you're going to write a virus that infects Windows because it's going to make you more money because there's more of them. And it's going to attach itself to more devices. So it's just kind of an interesting way, I think, an interesting way to think about some of this stuff. Also, so here's some of my couple hot takes regarding COVID. Now I'm not a medical professional, but just something I've kind of pieced together, and I'm sure other people are talking about this, but as bad as this is, as bad as COVID-19 is, imagine if the death rate was something like Ebola. So Ebola is about 50%. We're going to talk more about Ebola. It's super, super interesting. The guy in that book Spillover, he was riffing on that. And we're going to talk more about that. But imagine if the death rate was something like 50%. which is about what Ebola is. That would be super scary. So the death rate is higher than the flu for COVID-19. It's very serious. But imagine this is a wake up call. A lot of people. I mean, I'm not even going to say a lot of people are going to die. I'm not an expert. I'm not going to predict the future. The death rate is higher than the flu. A lot of people are going to get this. Probably a lot of people are going to die. A lot of people are starting to die. And that's very bad. But I think, and we still don't know the full impact of this, right? It's still a new virus, and maybe it turns out to be super, super bad. But at least the early indications are telling us that the case fatality rate is not nearly as high. It's not even close to Ebola. Imagine if we had something that spread all across the world that had that much of it, and that was that much of a gut check, 50% fatality rate. That would be insane. So in a way, I think we're going to get through this. It might take a couple years. We might go into a recession. Yes, a lot of people are going to die, and this is scary. It's certainly a scary time. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs. A lot of people are going to lose, hell, more than just their jobs. Shit's going to hit the fan. I get that, but I think we're going to come out of this stronger, and we're going to realize that viruses are no fucking joke, and we need to have an action plan for when shit hits the fan. The CDC, I think they were at like 13 billion in 2008. I believe it was the CDC. Again, this is shoot from the hip here. Not everything I'm going to know offhand. And then 10 years later, it was like 8 billion. So it was cut by about 25% or something. I think we're going to see bipartisan support, not just in the United States, but across the board to better handle viruses like this in the future. And we're going to talk more about virus in just a second. So yeah, I'm in some ways this is a wake up call. It's a wake up call. And Bill Gates and other people have been talking about this for years. I still remember Bill Gates saying the single biggest threat to humanity is a pandemic. That could just wipe us out. We're not prepared for it. Maybe not. I don't know if he said wipe out, but certainly kill a lot of people and be extremely dangerous and damaging to human society. So it's a very real thing, and now people have woken the fuck up. Full stop. They've woken up. So I think this is a good opportunity to make our systems better and respond to the next outbreak a hell of a lot better. Yeah. Also, it's pretty incredible. I was riffing with one of my homies on this. It's super incredible how much the world can still go on. Now, granted, this is mostly white collar jobs. A lot of people are out of work, and it's absolutely screwing them. I get that, but it is amazing. 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, the amount that can still go on with just an internet connection, the amount of businesses that can still run with just an internet connection, with people in their fucking PJs at home. It's absolutely absurd that our economy is this resilient. A lot of it, you need an internet connection and a laptop. Which is crazy, and a lot of super important stuff. Obviously, food, energy. You can't do that shit from home, right? But a big portion of our economy is just internet, laptop, pajamas, in my bedroom, game on. So it's fucking interesting. I just think that's a cool thing. That I don't think we really appreciate this. I think people say, the world, oh shit's hitting the fan, and it is. But imagine how worse it would be if the internet wasn't at the level it is, if we didn't have the tools that we have today. So it's just super. I think it's really a case study in how resilient our economy is. Okay. We got people in the group chat. I appreciate you chiming in. You're all my homies. My sister. We got Max, Sam. He needs a tweet T. I love it. Chathan, wow, you're copying things I tell people about the market. Chathan, come on, dude. Anyway, be chill, dude. Okay, so appreciate you guys checking out the live stream. I'm going to talk a little bit about. So now I'm going in. Not a little bit about. We're going to talk about fucking viruses. And can you guys hear me okay? I mean, I think I'm talking loud enough. Fucking love it. He's making the bird sounds in the background. Where is it? Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure y'all can hear me. I think you would have said something if you couldn't. But we're chill. I appreciate you guys chiming in. We got 9 people in there. I really appreciate you guys stopping by. So, okay, we're going to talk about the virus. Or excuse me, not the virus. We're not going to talk about COVID-19 specifically. We're going to talk about viruses in general. So there's a book called Spillover. It's called Spillover: Animal Infections in the Next Human Pandemic by David Quammen. Apologies on the pronunciation. This book is super, super interesting. It's the #1 bestseller right now on Amazon for the disease, under the disease section. I really highly recommend it. I'm about, I think, 20% of the way done. I don't know, but I haven't finished it yet. But there's some things I want to read from it, some things I've highlighted. that are just super interesting. So okay, so I'm just going to go through some of the quotes. So these pathogens aren't consciously hiding. So pathogens are any like microorganism or virus or bacteria that infects something. I think it's something like that. That's what the definition is. But anyway, it says these pathogens aren't consciously hiding, of course. They reside where they do and transmit as they do because those happenstance options have worked for them in the past, yielding opportunities for survival and reproduction. By the cold Darwinian logic of natural selection, evolution codifies happenstance into tragedy. So I think it's easy to, yeah, God, that's just, it just gets me fired up. It's insane. It's easy to think, oh, the virus is trying to attack people and kill people. No, the virus doesn't even, has no sense of what it's doing. It's just replicating itself. It's attaching itself to a host, replicating itself. And viruses aren't designed to kill people. They're not designed to kill hosts. Sometimes they do. The body reacts in certain ways to try to expel it. It just wants to stay alive. So the goal is not to kill the host. It's just to spread. And natural selection, that's turns that happenstance into strategy. Or did I say tragedy? That was a Freudian slip there. I meant codifies happenstance into strategy. Okay, so here's another one. Viruses have no locomotion, according to the eminent virologist Stephen S. Morse, yet many of them have traveled around the world. They can't run, they can't walk, they can't swim, they can't crawl, they ride. Again, I'm going to say that again. They can't run, they can't walk, they can't swim, they can't crawl, they ride. It is super interesting that something that has no locomotion, can't control where it goes, is arguably, there's not, I think the jury's still out on this, but is arguably the most numerous type of life form on the face of the earth. There's more viruses than any other life form on the planet, which is extremely interesting. Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about something. So he opens up his book loud and clear. We can hear well. Okay, I really appreciate you guys chiming in on that. It seriously means a lot that everyone's here. Really appreciate it. So we got the YouTube again. If you hear me talking to people, I'm talking to the YouTube live stream. We got 10 people on there. That's 10 more than we had last week. That's an increase of 1,000,000,000% at least. So we appreciate that. Okay, so next, he opens the book talking about the Hendra virus. Again, we're talking about a spillover animal infections, the next human pandemic. So he opens up the book by talking about the Hendra virus. So this was a virus that hit Australia, I think in 1996. But basically, he opens the way that because he opens the book this way because it really tells you a lot about how viruses work. Like a lot of people. I mean, I know I had this question like, why do viruses come out of nowhere? Seemingly, they don't do anything like a bullet. Every 10 years, every 5 years, a bullet hits the fan, and then we get rid of it. Well, we don't get rid of it, but we put it under wraps. Then it comes back, then it goes away, then it comes back. Where do these viruses come from? So it's super interesting. So the Hendra virus is a virus in Australia. They found it. Horses started dying to stable, and then a dude, I forget the guy's name, a vet died treating that horse, and then a couple of, I think he was the only one that died. The point is, people were like, "What the fuck? Where did this thing come from?" This horse died, then it infected others, and the horses were like bleeding from the eyes, their teeth, their gums were bleeding. They were running crazy, like they were falling over, fever, breathing hard. They were internal bleeding, shit like that. It was like, what? People were like, "Where the hell did this come from?" So it turns out the Hendra virus. The Hendra virus there's a type of fruit bat that the Hendra virus lives in. Now, the Hendra virus lives in a fruit bat, lives in the fruit bat, and fruit bat, I'm pretty sure it doesn't kill the fruit bats. If it kills the fruit bat, it only kills a very small percent. It's not dangerous to them. But all of a sudden, it started killing horses, and then it started killing humans. Why did this happen all of a sudden in 1996? Why did no one ever see this before? Well, a couple things. One, horses were introduced to Australia 200 years ago, something like that. 250 years ago, I think 1800s or something. They were introduced to Australia. Horses were brought there. They were not endemic to the region. They were brought there. And this virus that had been spreading across fruit bats, not killing them, just spreading across fruit bats. And these fruit bats, so it was spreading across fruit bats. Horses weren't there. People were, interacting with fruit bats. In fact, there's a lot of vets there's a lot of like caretakers in Australia that handle these fruit bats, and that the fruit bats have the virus, but the humans that directly touch the fruit bat do not get it. And this was this was like, well, why the fook? All these fruit bats have antibodies for this virus, or they have the virus, and they're not infecting the humans that are taking care of them. There's like a whole bunch of people in Australia. They love their animals. They take care of the bats and help nurse them back to health, shit like that. So here's the crazy thing, people. I want you to stay with me right now. Here's the crazy thing. The reason that this Hendra virus started infecting humans was because it had to go to a horse first. So the only way that it could infect a human was to go to a horse first, and the horse is called an amplifier. So sometimes a virus can't go directly from a bat to a human. It must go through another animal. In this case, it went to a horse, and that horse then gave it to an animal. The horse then gave it to humans. So how did the horse get it? Well, in this case, there was this tree that the original horse, where some bats were hanging out, and the horse likely got some shade there, and then somehow interacted with the bat, and boom, it got it. Then the virus was able to infect humans because the horse acted as an amplifier. So I'm gonna quote him a little bit more here, and he says, again, this is from spillover animal infections to the next human pandemic. He says, make no mistake, they're connected. These disease outbreaks coming one after another, and they are not simply happening to us. They represent the unintended results of things we are doing. And by we, he means humans. They reflect the convergence of two forms of crises on our planet. The first crisis is ecological, the second is medical. As the two intersect, their joint consequences appear as a pattern of weird and terrible new diseases. So mankind's activities are causing the disintegration, a word chosen carefully, of natural ecosystems at a cataclysmic rate. We all know the rough outlines of that problem by way of logging, road building, slash-and-burn agriculture, hunting, eating of wild animals, clearing forests to create cattle pasture, mineral extraction, et cetera, et cetera. So there's things we are doing now that are causing viruses to expose themselves. So he goes on. So those millions of unknown creatures that are now starting to come out include viruses, bacteria, fungi, protists, and other organisms, many of which are parasitic. Students of virology now speak of the virosphere, a vast realm of organisms that probably dwarfs every other group. Many viruses, for instance, inhabit the forests of Central Africa, each parasitic upon a kind of bacterium or animal or fungus or protist or plant, all embedded within ecological relationships that limit their abundance and their geographical range. But as soon as humans start interacting with animals they've never interacted with, and eating animals at a higher rate, and combining them with other animals and doing all these things, it increases the chance that the virus can jump. So we've heard about smallpox. So smallpox is an interesting one. It's a virus that can only live in humans. And again, this is in the book. This isn't me just saying this shit. Smallpox, it's basically, I think at this point it's eradicated. I don't think humans deserve a pat on the back. They've eradicated. Why could they eradicate smallpox? Because it only lives in humans. That virus only uses humans, Homo sapiens, as a host. Now, there's something called monkeypox, which can live in both monkeys and in humans. So we haven't eradicated monkeypox because it's hard to eliminate a virus when it's infecting, when it's a zoonosis is something he talks about. A zoonosis is something, I think it's a zoonosis, shit, hope I didn't get that wrong, is a disease that spreads, I believe it's a disease, yeah, it spreads between animals and humans. So there's things that only live among humans, viruses that only live among humans, like smallpox, we can get rid of. We can find the symptoms, we can quarantine that person, and we can prevent it from spreading. We're not going to quarantine every single monkey on the face of the earth. We're not going to quarantine every rat, every squirrel, every rabbit, every bat. So what's interesting is different humans are starting to do things they've never done before, bringing horses to Australia, for example, that is allowing different viruses to spread. So his whole thesis in this book so far is that we're just getting started with all this stuff. The more we interact, the more different animals interact with each other, the more that we cause them to interact with each other, the more we interact with them, the more places we go that we've never been before, the more we travel, how globalized the world is, people traveling from country to country to country to country. It's a recipe for spreading viruses. Now, this isn't a cause for, I'm not trying to freak anyone out, but it is interesting to think about, okay, where is all this shit coming from? and it's there's a reason that it's happening. And let's see. I think I talk about. Oh yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about HIV for a second here. So there's different types of HIV. Um, uh, but that is from, it originated in non-human primates. So it originated in non-human primates and then jumped. It's called a spillover when it goes from one species to another. It jumped from primates to humans. And this is a super, obviously we're all familiar with the effects of HIV, and shit hit the fan in the 80s, right? There was the AIDS epidemic. HIV is the virus. AIDS is, let me get this right, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So AIDS is the disease that HIV causes, in the same way that SARS-CoV-2 is the virus. That's the little organism that's spreading around. The disease it causes is COVID-19. Um, uh, so HIV came about in the 80s because some by happenstance, a primate interacted with a human, bada bing, bada boom. They either, I forget exactly, I think they could probably pinpoint it. But a human either ate a primate or interacted with it somehow, and then boom, it jumped to humans, and then humans, obviously, we're social creatures. We give it to each other, bada bing, bada boom, and it spread. Um, so that's an interesting. It's an interesting thing. I never, everyone knows about. Everyone knows that it causes AIDS, but you kind of forget this is a virus too, right? It's not just um, to think of it as, oh, it's just a sexually transmitted disease. It is, but it's a virus. Similar, just like COVID-19, right? Excuse me, SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus. COVID-19 is the disease. So it's an interesting thing. These new viruses and these new diseases aren't coming out of nowhere. There's a reason that they can just pop up. So another interesting little tidbit. I read this on Wikipedia, so bear with me here. But a teaspoon of seawater has 50 million viruses, likely the most numerous organism on Earth. 50 million viruses. It's the most numerous organism on Earth. So 50 million viruses live in a teaspoon of salt water. How insane is that? So I don't know. I have this idea that humans. I'm a big fan of humans, Homo sapiens. I think we do a lot of cool shit. I think we're smart. I think we're social. I think we know how to build shit. I think it's epic. I'd have a bit of a complex about it. I'm proud of my species. What's your favorite animal? Human being, brother. That's my favorite animal. What's your favorite animal? Is it? Come on. I love dogs, but what is your favorite animal really? Come on, it's humans. What are we talking about? We're all humans. We love humans. That's how it works. But viruses, there's this whole world. There's this whole world underneath us and around us and in us and everywhere. Viruses that are they're more numerous than us, and they don't know anything about technology. They don't know how to build a fucking iPhone. They don't care about an iPhone. They just spread. And you can't really how do you judge a species by how do you compare one's better than the other? One not bad way to do that is how many there are, how quickly is it spreading. And so there's this whole world of viruses that I was not privy to until that. Okay, here's another fucking mind-blowing thing here. Let's just text you out. Okay, sweet. We got another super interesting here. Opinions differ. Again, this is from Wikipedia, but opinions differ on whether viruses are even a form of life. So some people think you can't even consider them life. They've been described as organisms at the edge of life, since they resemble organisms in that they possess genes evolved by natural selection and reproduce by creating multiple copies of themselves through self-assembly. Although they have genes, they do not have a cellular structure, which is often seen as the basic unit of life. Viruses do not have their own metabolism and require a host cell to make new products. They therefore cannot naturally reproduce outside a host cell. A virus needs a host cell to survive, full stop. The fact that it might even not be considered a life form is just super interesting. So if it's not a life form, well, what the fuck is it? It's just something that replicates itself and spreads. Crazy. Okay, epic. We're gonna take a little bit. We're gonna talk next. We're gonna take a little bit of break. I'm gonna go on a little wedding ring rant. Then we're gonna be talking about the politics of pandemics. The Economist had a good little rundown on what this. Had a good piece on this, so I'm gonna just go through that. We're gonna riff on that. Okay, so ladies, listen up. Here's the wedding ring thing, and I've seen it happen. My sister knows. My sister's we've riffed on this. I've seen it happen personally. Ladies, when you get married, or excuse me, when you get engaged, what is it with you just send the photo of the ring? You don't even have a nice little caption. You blast a photo of the fucking ring out and just look at the rock, as if the whole thing that defines your relationship and the whole the beauty of that, because it's love, and the thing that defines it the most, and the thing when you go tell someone, post on Instagram, the thing that's going to most quickly, kind of sum up what the situation is a fucking rock, is the fact that someone bought you a $10,000 fucking thing and put it on your finger, and you're going to send that out, and you're just going to blast it out without a caption. You're going to just send the photo out, and that's how you're going to tell people that you're married. I just think it's, yeah, I just think that's fucking hilarious. And then there's the whole, besides the fact that, listen, I reserve the right to sell out and do the same thing. Don't get me wrong. Not take the picture. Listen, I think wedding rings are kind of a scam in that, you're spending a shit ton of money on something that the whole industry is just a nightmare. Like, millennials talk about fucking, the Wall Street Journal talking about millennials care about how they spend their money and they care about travel and experiences. And why are y'all buying still fucking wedding rings? Don't, Wall Street Journal, relax. Millennials are the same as the boomers. Okay, let's relax on that. Besides that, the industry is rigged and the prices are fixed and De Beers basically runs that shit. Besides all that, you're really just gonna here's a photo of the ring, and then here's what I love. I love that when you go and someone's recently engaged and you talk to the couple and there's like, well, I'm engaged, and the first thing people do, they go right to the rock. They go right to the fucking rock. And then you got to go through the whole thing of looking at the ring and saying how beautiful it is, and like, oh, that's such a beautiful ring. And like, anytime I find myself where I'm just, first of all, I don't do this. But anytime I find myself where I'm in a social situation where I'm just playing a role, like just click play and then just go on autopilot, shut my brain off and just do it because everyone else does it. Like a lot of people do that with the ring. No matter, I don't care if the ring looks like dog shit. You're gonna say, "Oh my god, it's beautiful!" Like, it's insane. Uh, I just think it's a hilarious whole thing. You're in a social. God bless Turnboy Malloy, my homie. He says, "Show me the bling" when someone's engaged. He's like, "Show me the bling." He's that kind of satirizing the whole thing. I just think the whole bling thing is just it just doesn't feel. And yeah, I might do the same thing. I don't know if maybe I buy a ring, but it's just like ah. The thing is, it's expensive. It's a fucked up industry. It doesn't represent. It doesn't. Is that what the love is? Is that how you're gonna tell people that you got married, by sending them a photo of the ring? Because that's what the ring is. It was dug out of the ground in some, or maybe it was a grandma's ring. Maybe it was grandma's ring passed down. But I just don't know. There's too much emphasis on the ring. People spend too much energy on it. Money on it. And it's just yeah. It's just an annoying fucking thing. So I just had to get that off my chest. Yeah. So next thing up, we're going to talk about the politics of pandemics. The Economist had an interesting post. So an interesting article rather. So interesting thing they said is restaurants, bars, and shops, except food stores and pharmacies, were told to close entirely from March 12th. Europe has not seen controls like this on the scale since the Second World War. So I think people think I like putting things in perspective, and I had never really thought about that. We haven't seen this since the Second World War, and I'm just gonna look at how much time. Damn, I'm already 45 minutes in. I'm supposed to be going faster on this shit. Yeah, you're right, Jathan. These shouldn't be 2 hours. I'm just damn. Well, we're still working on the method here. Anyway, we haven't seen this type of response since the Second World War, which is just, put that in perspective. Okay, so they go on to see what is to come. Look at Lombardy, the affluent Italian region at the heart of COVID-19 outbreak. Its hospitals provide world-class healthcare. Until last week, they thought they would cope with the disease. Then waves of people began turning up with pneumonia. Having run out of ventilators and oxygen, exhausted, staff at some hospitals are being forced to leave untreated patients to die. Epidemiologists, I can finally pronounce that word, by the way. Epidemiologists reckon Italy is 1 or 2 weeks ahead of places like Spain, France, America, and Britain. Less connected countries such as Egypt and India are further behind. So yeah, in the U.S., we haven't seen a huge overrun of the hospitals yet. Some I know are, we're seeing reports, some are starting to fill up, and we're seeing that, but we haven't seen so far. We just haven't seen. We haven't reached Italian levels yet, and it'll be an interesting next couple weeks to see if we do. because we may just be behind Italy, or maybe because we're not as geographically concentrated, our population is concentrated, maybe, and our population's not as old, maybe we won't see the same effects. We will see. But this is going to be a very interesting 2 weeks, which is why social distance, do your part. Call Grammy and Grampy. Okay, so they actually lauded China's solution. China's solution, endorsed by the World Health Organization, was to impose a brutal quarantine bolstered by mass testing and contact tracing. That came at a high human and economic cost, but new infections have dwindled. This week, in a victory lap, President Xi Jinping visited Wuhan, where the pandemic first emerged. Yet uncertainty persists even in China because nobody knows if a second wave of infections will rise up as the quarantine eases. Okay, it goes on to say universal systems like Britain's National Health Service should find it easier to mobilize resources and adapt rules and practices than fragmented private ones that have to worry about who pays whom and who is liable for what. The United States, despite its wealth and the excellence of medical science, faces hurdles. Its private system is optimized for fee-paying treatments. America's 28 million uninsured people, 11 million illegal immigrants, and an unknown number without sick pay all have reasons to avoid testing or isolation. Red tape and cuts have fatally delayed adequate testing, which the red tape is, by the FDA and CDC have largely been cut down for now, at least with some things to move things along. Okay, so it goes on. What should politicians do? Each country must strike its own balance between the benefits of tracking the disease and the invasion of privacy. But South Korea and China show the power of big data and mass testing as a way of identifying cases and limiting their spread. Governments also need to anticipate the pandemic because actions to slow its spread, such as banning crowds, are more effective if they are early. The best example of how to respond is Singapore, which has had many fewer cases than expected, thanks to an efficient bureaucracy in a single small territory, world-class universal health care, and the well-learned lessons of SARS, an epidemic of a related virus in 2003. Singapore acted early. It has been able to make difficult trade-offs with public consent because its message has been consistent, science-based, and trusted. So one of the things right now, the U.S., China didn't even do this. We've done full country lockdown, boom, and we're going to talk more about what the United States has done. Peter Zeihan had a good piece on it, put in perspective at how actually drastic the United States, how drastic its measures have been. But China didn't even do a full country lockdown. And part of the reason I think the U.S. is doing that is because we just don't have the testing yet. Like if we had 320 million tests, we could test the whole population. We get those tests out. We could distribute those tests and figure out where the hot zones are. Okay, if we know in this city there's only 4 people infected, let's quarantine them and let's allow businesses to open up. Let's allow certain areas that aren't hot zones for it to start opening up. If we can, the biggest thing is testing. Shutting down is good. It's not good. I saw a tweet by, I forgot who, but he said basically shutting down the country is like holding your breath, right? You can only do it for so long before shit just starts to hit the fan, the economy-wise, not to mention people's sanity. But yeah, so I think it's a super interesting. I also think there's a lot of people riffing on Trump being a jackass. Trump is jackass, obviously, but there's a lot of people riffing on the fact that calling this the Chinese virus, and that doesn't do anything to help anything. But I think it is worth mentioning. Screw the whole Chinese virus is the messaging, blah blah blah. Don't call it the Chinese virus, whatever. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with not calling it the Chinese virus. Excuse me. Call it COVID-19, whatever. The issue is that we do need to seriously consider the fact that China early on was preventing the spread of information around COVID-19. Now they've had a good response after the fact, at least we think. So far, it looks that way. Again, this is a dictatorship. Xi Jinping is a dictator. Full stop. He's so anything that comes out of China, I'm always a little skeptical of. But there were reports. They were spreading Trump's a jackass. It's important to understand that China was doing things that spreading rumors that the U.S. Army brought this to China. That's insane. And also, when this was first going on, when this was first hitting the fan, COVID-19 was first spreading, they were first getting a bunch of cases of pneumonia. They tried to keep it under wraps. They did not want the global community to know about this. And if we all knew about it a hell of a lot sooner, I think we would have all maybe wouldn't have reacted better, but we likely would have. Again, it takes people on your home turf to start going to the hospital before you fucking wake up, and we kind of saw that with the U.S. And then early on, Trump stopped flights from, I believe, China early on, and people thought, it was probably him just being a dick, but that was actually the right thing to do early on because when you have a dictatorship, a communist dictatorship that censors free speech and is preventing doctors from getting information out there, and you hear about a virus that is spreading, that is killing people, pray tell me what you would do. Of course, protect your own country. You're going to limit the flights from China, because we don't know what the food, we can't trust the information. And yeah, I try to, the People's Republic of China, the Fukin, the government, Xi Jinping. I dog on a lot. I check nograding.com is actually not banned in China, so it just shows I'm too small time. It's not censored in China, rather. But yeah, I think it's important to look at, obviously the U.S. the federal response has been dogged, but in the future, it's important to see, okay, when there's patient zero in a country, fucking overly be proactive about telling other countries about what the deal is. Share a shit ton of information about it. Okay, so we're going to talk about McKinsey had he had a report released on March 16th that was talking about what does this look like for business, so the economy. So they have two scenarios. They have the first is delayed recovery. So epidemiology. So in this scenario, a delayed recovery. In this scenario, new case counts in the Americas and Europe rise until mid-April. Asian countries peak earlier. Epidemics in Africa and Oceania are limited. Growth in case counts is slowed by effective social distancing through a combination of national and local quarantines. Employers to restrict travel and implement work from home policies and individual choices. Testing capacity catches up to need, allowing an accurate picture of the epidemic. The virus proves to be seasonal, further limiting its spread. By mid-May, public sentiment is significantly more optimistic about the epidemic. The Southern Hemisphere winter sees an uptick in cases, but by that point, countries have a better developed playbook for response, while the autumn of 2020 sees a resurgence of infections. Better preparedness enables continued economic activity. Okay, so in the delayed recovery, so again, they have two scenarios. This is a delayed recovery scenario, and I'll link to all this in the show notes. Here's the economic impact of this delayed recovery. So large-scale quarantines, travel restrictions, and social distancing measures drive a sharp fall in consumer business spending until the end of Q2, producing a recession. End of Q2, let's do that. January, February, March, April, May, June. End of June. So they're saying a sharp demand till end of Q2, so June. Self-reinforcing dynamics of recession kick in and prolong the slump until the end of Q3, June, July, August, September, so the end of September. So they think a slump until the end of Q3 potentially. Consumers stay home, businesses lose revenue and lay off workers, and unemployment levels rise sharply. Business investment contracts and corporate bankruptcies soar, putting significant pressure on the banking and financial system. Monetary policy is further eased in Q1 but has limited impact given the prevailing low interest rates. Modest fiscal response proves insufficient damage in Q2, Q3. It takes until Q4 for European and U.S. economies to see a genuine recovery. Global GDP in 2020 falls slightly. Okay, so they expect falls slightly, meaning that's some negative growth they expect in 2020, and we don't see until Q4 a genuine recovery. So here's the other more worst case. So this is basically a year we're out of it. That's what they're saying. Here's a prolonged contraction. So epidemiology. So here's the epidemiology of it. In this scenario, the epidemic does not peak in the Americas and Europe until May. So remember, they said mid-April is when it would peak in the good case. Again, this is McKinsey's report on COVID-19. The epidemic does not peak in the Americas and Europe until May, as delayed testing and weak adoption of social distancing stymie the public health response. The virus does not prove to be seasonal, leading to a long tail of cases through the rest of the year. Africa, Oceania, and some Asian countries also experience widespread epidemics, though countries with younger populations experience fewer deaths in percentage terms. Even countries that have been successful in controlling the epidemic, such as China, are forced to keep some public health measures in place to prevent resurgence. So it's important to understand, dude, we don't all know all the details of COVID-19. We don't know what the effect is when the weather heats up. We don't know. We don't even know if you can get this again, right? It's possible you can get this again. Maybe you're not fully immune. Like there's some things that are viral that you can get again. So we don't have all the information on this. So I think when you see a lot of times you see wide varying. Okay, what does the future look like? It's huge. It's could be this, could be. There's a reason for that. It's because we have uncertainty, and when we're dealing with uncertainty, I think it's prudent to prepare for the worst case, or at least seriously consider the worst case. Now, always preparing for the worst case can be a huge huge damper on the economy, and maybe that actually outweighs some of the health benefits from it. Again, there are no solutions; there are only trade-offs. We started the show with that quote. Okay, so we're going to continue. So here's the economic impact of a prolonged contraction. That is, it does not peak until May. So demand suffers as consumers cut spending throughout the year. In the most affected sectors, the number of corporate layoffs and bankruptcy rises throughout 2020, feeding a self-reinforcing downward spiral. The financial system suffers significant distress, but a full-scale banking crisis is averted because of banks' strong capitalization and the macro-prudential supervision now in place. Fiscal and monetary policy responses prove insufficient to break the downward spiral. Okay, this is worth it because anything I end up Googling, I just tell you guys. So fiscal and monetary policy, I used to get confused about this shit. I've Googled it like 50 times. I finally understand the difference. Monetary policy is the control of the money supply. So monetary policy is like the bank buying mortgages or buying treasuries. Actually, not the central bank. Fiscal policy is government spending, right? It's and including revenue and spending. So it's taxes and how they spend it. So there's two different levers there. So the global, so the global economic impact is severe, approaching the global financial crisis of 08-09. GDP contracts significantly in most major economies in 2020, and recovery begins only in Q2 2021. For example, a ban on travel also they give an example of a ban on travel without concomitant work from home policy can make the office very crowded, leading to higher risk of transmission. That I thought was interesting. So people aren't working in their office, but a ban from travel. So let's say they let people go back to their offices. A ban from travel, more people are in a tighter space because everyone, Joe and Bob and Mary and Joanne are all in the office together. Whereas before, Bob was closing deals, Sue Ann was fucking overseas in China closing big deals. Now they're all in the office just together. So that's an interesting thing. We're not seeing that right now. So anyway, I'm actually surprised. I don't make predictions about the market. Not really. I may have one 50 years out. I generally think it's going to go up. I believe in humans. I believe in progress. I believe that we're going to get through a lot of shit. I believe we're super smart. It feels weird to me that the market is only where it's at. As of close on Friday, March, what is that, 21st, it closed exactly where it closed in February 2017, so only 3 years ago. So it surprised me that we've only regressed 3 years. When looking at some of this shit, people think shit's gonna hit the fan. So I would have think it would have maybe the market maybe knows something I don't. In fact, I mean, of course, it knows something I don't. The market is ever intelligent, but I'm surprised that we're not below 2,000 right now. I'm surprised shit hasn't really hit the fan yet. I mean, it has. It's gone down a significant amount, but I'm surprised it hasn't gone down more. But we will see. Okay, they also say, unfortunately, we're not going to end with an interesting little tidbit at the end. Or not an optimistic tidbit, rather. They say optimism about the return of demand is dangerous. Being optimistic about demand recovery is a real problem, especially, again, this is McKinsey. If you're just joining us, McKinsey, excuse me. They put out a report on COVID-19 about how it's going to affect the economy. So optimism about the return of demand is dangerous. Being optimistic about demand recovery is a real problem, especially for companies with working capital or liquidity shortages and those bearing towards bankruptcy. Troubled organizations are more likely to believe in faster recovery or a shallower downturn. Facing up to the possibility of a deeper, more protracted downturn is essential, since the options available now before recession sets in may be more palatable than those available later. For example, divestments to provide needed cash can be completed at a higher price today than in a few weeks or months. So they're saying strap in, baby. Get that cash on hand now, because shit's going to get real. Protect your business. Do what you got to do. We talked about, I believe last week, about Sequoia Capital put out an interesting piece on, how to protect your business. What do you need to do? Be proactive. Question everything about your business. Question your revenue. Question your headcount. Spend every dollar like it's your last. Really think about this shit. This is going to be an absolutely existential crisis for businesses to survive this. And then it says recession may set in. The disruption of the current outbreak is shifting industry structures. Credit markets may seize up in spite of stimulus. Supply chain resilience will be at a premium. It may sound impossible for management teams that are already working 18-hour days, but too few are dedicating the needed time and effort to respond, to think about the long term. I think their point is people are putting fires out now instead of seeing what's going to happen in 3, 6 months, a year. So that's what they're seeing. So this is some interesting stuff here. So we're gonna talk. Sweet, we got some comments in the chat. I feel like I'm being made the villain here. Oh, Jathan, I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys all in the little chat there. Appreciate that. Love you guys. Jathan, you're a good dude. Relax. again, if you hear me talking to people, I'm talking to people on YouTube live. So I will say, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some blockchain stuff now. And so I'm going to talk about some blockchain stuff, some interesting stuff. Then we're going to go back to Peter Zeihan had a good, interesting piece on, it's called The Geopolitics of American Fear. So we'll get back to the COVID stuff, but I wanted to kind of, I wanted to just break things up a little bit so we're not talking about the same thing continuously. So we're going to talk a little bit about blockchain. I love talking about blockchain. I think, again, not the price. The price isn't the interesting part to me. The technology is interesting. The price, whatever it is, bada bing, bada boom. But there's some interesting things that you can, 4 years ago, I would say, today, well, 4 years ago, I wasn't really knee deep in this shit. Maybe 3 years ago, I would say, where's the use case? Right now, we are seeing the use case. So I know, Jack, I don't know if you're still in the chat, but we were talking about this. There's this app called Dharma, DHARMA. It's shaping up to prove itself to be like the Venmo of cryptocurrency. So, but it's only sending U.S. U.S. pegged currency. So it's called DAI, which is made by the Maker DAO Foundation, which is tied to the U.S. dollar. Has a very interesting way of making sure that it's always the price of $1. Now, sometimes it fluctuates a little bit. Sometimes I think it went up to as high as $1.05 because there wasn't enough supply of it. But there's some really interesting game theoretic and incentive structures around DAI to keep the price pegged at $1. Anyway, Dharma recently announced that you can have usernames just like Venmo. So all of a sudden, I don't need to copy someone's long-ass cryptocurrency address. If you've ever seen a cryptocurrency address, it's like fucking 30 characters long, all these different, it's alphanumeric. It's a nightmare, Anyway, Dharma allows you to you can share your username and people can send you DAI on it. So, and you can connect your bank account, you can connect your debit card, and you can fund your account with DAI, and you can send US dollar back cryptocurrency anywhere in the world. Now, disclaimer, DAI is still fairly new. I would not recommend using this and putting like $1,000 in this, paying people that way. Like, listen, this is still new, but it's very interesting. So, I was hike the Pacific Crest Trail. A lot of foreigners coming over here. I always feel like a xenophobe saying foreigners, but I don't know what else to call people that were on the trail that are from other countries. Foreigners, people not from here. But I always feel like a douche. But anyway, getting a German to pay you, for example, you buy the Airbnb, getting a German to pay you is a pain in the ass. They gotta go. Anyone that's not from this country, or if anyone traveling abroad, you know what it's like to pay people. You can't just Venmo people. Venmo is US only. Anyone that comes over here, or you go over there, you gotta go to the ATM. First of all, you get fleeced on the ATM fees. You have to pay to access your own money. Jesus, burn it down, baby. To pay to access your own money, and then you have to pay someone in cash. It's like that's the easiest way. Or you could do PayPal and get fleeced on fees. So you can still do international transfers, but you get fleeced on fees. Dharma, right now, international. You cannot connect international banks yet, but let me walk you through what's coming. Dharma, again, it's still new. I'm not saying go do this and stop using Venmo and start using Dharma. No. But what I will say is once they allow international banks, people in Europe, for example, or any country, besides the U.S., to connect their bank account and purchase DAI, all of a sudden, transferring money between people of different countries, it's in U.S. dollars, is boom, a hell of a lot easier. And that is a very real use case of cryptocurrency that is already bringing value today, but will bring more value in the future. So I think it's a super interesting thing. If you gotta, is Dharma a lost reference? No, I don't know if Dharma. No, Dharma is I think it's like some. I forget it. I think it's. Oh fuck! I forget if it. We need Dharma. It's what we're meant to do. Oh, God, I think I did this religion project. I think it has to do with Hinduism. So I don't think it's a lost reference, but maybe lost reference. Anyway, someone comment on that in the live stream. So the thing is, okay, so Jack, I see you're on in the live chat. If anyone wants to try this app right now, download Dharma. It's on iOS and Android. Jack will say, and then who can add your username in the chat. Jack will send you some money right now. He'll send you 1 cent. You can see, and this is going over the power of the blockchain. So it's not going, when I send money on Venmo, it's talking to a server in a room, right? It's talking like someone owns that server. When you're sending money over the blockchain, it's hitting every node across. It's a distributed network of computers connected together. No one controls all the computers. It's a distributed network of computers that all somehow make the magic happen. It's a very, very fascinating thing. Okay, the other thing is Storage Labs released something called tardigrade. And tardigrade is, have you ever heard of a water bear? Water bears, those organisms, those little cute things, you zoom in on, Google it, they're super cute. They're the things that basically can't die, they can survive in space. They're little organisms. They're harmless. They're not like SARS-CoV-2. But anyway, they have a product. It's built on Ethereum. It's a decentralized storage service that competes with Amazon S3. So Amazon S3 is Amazon's simple storage service. You put files up on Amazon, Amazon stores them, you can distribute them anywhere in the world super fast. Storage Labs released their own with, so they said, today we're pleased to celebrate the launch of the world's first SLA-backed decentralized cloud storage service, and it's cheaper than S3. In SLA-backed, SLA means service level agreement, so that just means that they have guarantees like about what the uptime of the files will be. So they're saying they're cheaper than Amazon and it's fully distributed. What that means is that anyone can be a storage provider on the network and get paid. So if you have a server farm or something, you have extra capacity, you can sign up for Storage Labs, or even you can do this with your computer at home. I'm pretty sure, I haven't tested this, but you can provide, if you have a server at home, you can get paid to distribute files, bandwidth to people. So rather than rather than store my files on Amazon, I store it on all these nodes distributed across the entire world, and I distribute them on your computer if your computer is online. Now, you say, well, what if someone's computer goes down? Well, it's copied in multiple places, right? So if any one computer goes down, then it's a redundant system. So this is a super interesting thing. We'll see. This is still early. They literally just launched they just announced the blog post, or they just launched like 2 days ago. So we'll see, but all I'm saying is there's interesting things happening in blockchain. That's my only point that I try to make with this stuff, is that there's interesting things that are happening today, and definitely sending cryptocurrency, US dollar-backed cryptocurrency is definitely a more real-world use case right now. Storage Labs is kind of a little pie in the sky right now, but they're saying that, we'll see. We'll see. It's got some Google Ventures as a backer in them. Who else? I forget. Oh, Qualcomm Ventures. Qualcomm makes a lot of hardware that's basically in every single smartphone, including iPhones, including Android phones. So it's an interesting project, and we'll see. And it's cheaper than Amazon. I don't know how they can be cheaper than Amazon. Part of the way Amazon initially, Amazon Web Services came into be is Bezos said, okay, basically everything we use internally, allow other people to use it externally. So everything internally, they basically put like a service layer between it, so that you can't interact with it directly, but you have to interact through it in a way that a customer outside the company would have to interact with it. And the reason that they were able to, they had such scale from their commerce business, they had such scale, they were all paying all the servers anyway. They're like, well, why not? We just allow other people to use this. We already have the upfront cost. So I don't know how something like Storage Labs is going to scale. I really don't, but I'm really excited about it, and we'll see what happens. Okay, water break for just a second here. We're gonna take a look at the comments here while we're getting the water. But I don't really have time to respond to everyone right now, but let me just get a little water break. Okay, Buddhist reference. Okay, it's Buddhism. Send me money. I only have 1 cent. Lost like the TV show. Yeah, Shannon Crosby. Oh, wow, Shannon, respect. Okay, hell yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Dad just fell asleep while watching this. Okay, respect. Thank you, Snake. Anyone on this right now, you're my goat, and I love you. I only sent Jack 1 cent, got him a cheapskate, so he can't send it to anyone. That's hilarious. Well, anyway, again, I'm talking to people on the YouTube live stream, so I'm going to be publishing this podcast later. But yeah, so hopefully I'll do the YouTube live thing from now on. Anyway, we've got some more interesting stuff. Okay, so Peter Zeihan, I talk about Peter Zeihan a lot on this. Definitely recommend his newsletter. It's called Zeihan on Geopolitics. He's great. He's on Twitter. I think I don't agree with everything he says, but I think he has some really interesting, thought-provoking ideas. So he released a blog post, and I'm going to run through it here. Damn, I basically, geez, I have my notes here, and I basically just copied the whole thing. I kind of overdid it. But we're gonna go through some of this. Zeihan, okay, so he called it the geopolitics of American fear. Okay, so he basically does this in every blog post. So here's what he has to say. So the American geography is by far the best on the planet. The greater Midwest is the largest chunk of the temperate zone, high quality arable land in the world, and it's lined by the world's largest internal navigable waterway network. Development and industrialization is the cheapest of anywhere in the world. Barren deserts, rugged mountains, dense forests, giant lakes, and ocean moats make for a nigh invasion-proof homeland. For 5 generations, the United States experienced greater development, rising standards of living, easy financial access, minimal health concerns, rising economic growth, all in an environment of almost perfect security. He has a book called The Accidental Superpower, and the whole point of the book is basically that the U.S. has all these things. It's not like, oh, Americans are great and like we are. Well, I mean, I think Americans are great, whatever. But he's at the point is the reason we become successful is because of, i.e., accidental superpower. There's all these accidental things that we allowed us to be great. Oceans on either side of us. It's hard to invade us. Super arable land. There's all these different things. Navigable waterways. So he talks about this stuff. So it's interesting to consider. Anyway, he goes on. First, considering its riches, its low development costs, and its security, the U.S. economy is geographically set up for massive success. It isn't about policy or governance or ideology. It is about place. That cannot be copied. The American system has exited every decade. I want you to hear this. The American system has exited every decade in a stronger position than it was when it entered, including the decade periods of the Great Depression and the Great Recession. It came through the 1920 Spanish flu epidemic, a far more deadly pathogen than the coronavirus, just fine. It will come through this one. It will come through this one. Second, the United States isn't very good at national governance. When geography takes care of all the big issues, there's little need for a large, overarching, competent is it overarching or overarching? Arcing. Who knows? And it shows. The U.S. isn't Germany or Korea, countries that live in geographic pressure cookers, and so governance has to be top-notch to ensure survival. This isn't Russia, which is paranoid for good reason, and so must excel at intelligence operations. This isn't Brazil, where the terrain and climate are hostile to development, and so excellent at infrastructure policy is essential. America's lack of federal competence means that when there's a crisis, it all comes down to the personality, skill, and the context of the person at the top. America's initial reaction to the coronavirus isn't its first failure of presidential leadership, but America's sublime geography means the country will survive this failure to have others down the road. Americans have no sense of proportion. So here's where he goes on to, Americans kind of overdo everything. So Americans have no sense of proportion. The same thing that gives us our can-do optimism and arrogance means that we face unexpected challenge. That when we face an unexpected challenge, we fear the covenant with God has been broken, and doom doesn't so much beckon, but instead will crash down upon us presently. And so we panic, we overreact, but we overreact with the power of the world's largest and most stable and most technologically advanced economy. We overact with the strength of a continent. We overact with the world's most powerful long-range military, a military that absolutely controls all global waterways. And in doing so, we reshape the world, not on purpose, but simply as a side effect of our panic. So these aren't, this sounds like he's beating the chest of America. And he is a little bit. He's saying some good things, but these are just facts. These aren't really disputable things about the United States. And I think people often think the United States is over the hill. The fact of the matter is that it's not, even with how much incompetence we have in Congress. And his whole point is that there's so many things going right with what we have here and our geography that we couldn't fuck it up if we tried. Okay, so here he talks about sometimes the United States has freaked out. Here he goes. American history of all eras is rich with examples of such manic depressive behavior. Some recent ones. The Pearl Harbor Panic fostered the deep water dominant strategy, culminating in a navy more powerful than all others combined. The Japanese Royal Air Force surprised us at Pearl Harbor, killed 3,000 Americans. What is the result of that? We have the largest navy in the world because that industrial plant. So he has another thing in one of his newsletters. He say the Russians put a grapefruit in space, and we fucking landed on the moon. Like, so when we get scared, we overdo it. We overdo the response. The Vietnam Depression married tech to military strategy and brought us JDAMs, cruise missiles, the internet, and cell phones. The 1979 and 1983 oil shocks led directly to deep water oil production and the shale revolution. So shale revolution, what we are seeing, the United States is a net exporter of oil. As of 2018, we are the largest oil exporter in the world, and partly the biggest oil reserves in the world are in Saudi Arabia. Aramco is the state-owned oil company there. But the reason that we beat them in 2018 was because they limit their production. They limit production because they're part of a organization for petroleum exporting countries. It's called OPEC. They do it. It's a cartel, an international cartel that limits the amount of oil they produce to control prices. So they'll limit supply, so prices go up. So anyway, so here's also what he says. In the 96 hours, so he talks about a little bit how we've gone from functionally zero actions against coronavirus to among the world's most invasive. And unlike other countries, China comes to mind, who have only instituted constraints on specific areas where there are known coronavirus outbreaks. The Americans have instituted their restrictions nationwide. America now hosts the largest population in the world under lockdown. That's an interesting thing to behold. America now hosts the largest population in the world under lockdown. The Federal Reserve's new bond buying program to support the markets, its only analog is what the same Federal Reserve did back during the 2008 financial crisis. But this time it was done in a day instead of a month. And we're going to talk about all the things the Federal Reserve is doing. It's actually absolutely insane how quickly they've responded to this. The industrial plants retooling to make medical supplies, completely unprecedented, unless you compare it to America's post-Sputnik industrial overhaul. So I don't know much about the medical supply retooling stuff, but we'll see what that ends up. So we're going to see more ventilator shit like that. We'll see if that proves to be successful. Want to see something really impressive? Watch the process for crafting, manufacturing, and distributing the coronavirus vaccine. The U.S. just approved human trials on March 16th. That's a solid 2 months faster than any such trials ever. And if that were not enough, in the heart of the crisis, the U.S. government is attempting to wholesale purchase the German firm furthest along in generating the German anti-coronavirus vaccine. Needless to say, in Germany, this is perceived as a total dick move. I love the way this guy writes. The U.S. is now fully has woken up. You talk about woke the sleeping giant, World War II. We were trying to buy a company wholesale from Germany. And there was actually Angela Merkel and some other German officials got together and were like, "Yo, it caused panic in Germany. Like, yo, we can't let the United States purchase this company." They seem to be the most far along in the vaccine, but we'll see. The global system, as we know it, the system that has enabled everything from global manufacturers trade to global energy trade to the existence of the European Union to the rise of China, is an American creation designed for the Cold War. That system was the payment to our allies to side with us against the Soviet Union. That system ceased serving American strategic interests in the Cold War's end. In the days before coronavirus, it was coming to an end. Coronavirus has sped things up, severing most of the remaining ties that bind the world together. No one else has the military capacity to ensure freedom of the seas, nor the demographic consumptive capacity to fuel global commerce. Since their economy is largely self-contained, Americans really don't care if the system collapses. So this is where he starts to say the whole world's going to end. So one of his main theses is that post World War II, we got the whole world together. So we're all going to trade with each other. We're all going to get rich, and we're going to break the Soviets. Now that the Cold War is over, we don't really care about maintaining global order. Which this is where I don't fully agree with him. I do think it's interesting to read about, but I mean, it's like, don't we benefit from our allies? We still benefit from keeping trade going and keeping countries keeping the peace. So anyway, he says, in this environment, other nations need to be extremely careful lest they court American wrath. America has a near infinite capacity to act, a near immunity to blowback, and a near zero concern for consequences. It isn't clear to me that there is yet recognition of, again, this is Peter Zeihan. He came out with a newsletter. I'm just reading quotes from it. So it isn't clear to me that there is yet recognition of this fact in the wider world. Russia's continual use of military aircraft to needle the North American defense envelope during an American fear response is monumentally stupid. I lack the vocabulary to communicate how fantastically foolish it is for the Chinese state media to spread conspiracy theories that the U.S. Army originated coronavirus and dropped it into Wuhan. Even Europeans, whining that the Trump administration acted too hastily in enacting travel restrictions on flights between Europe and the United States, wasn't perhaps the right time to take issue with American policy. Yes, all in, it has been a crappy couple of weeks, and we should just bake into our expectations that the next 3 months won't be remotely fun. But honestly, the real news is that we are right now suspended in a deep breath moment between eras of history, and the world's only superpower is absolutely terrified. So he thinks, when America gets scared about something, we overreact, and we with the full force of our economy, our military, and our technological and economic power. So we're going to see these next. I totally agree. The next few months are going to be interesting, to say the least. So I recommend you subscribe to his newsletter. I'm a big fan of it. I love. Don't agree with everything he says, but I think it's thought provoking stuff, and it's just a great read, and it's not dry. It's super fun. It's super fun. Oh, anyway, I kind of glossed over that, but Russia. So shit like that. So Russia is flying some. I think it's Russia's near Alaska. They're flying or something to like just kind of poke at us. I think they do it every now and again just to get not I don't know if it's in our airspace, but get near us just to be like, yo, we have planes. Anyway, I never knew that until now, but they're continuing to do that. And his whole point is, don't do that while America's scared and might overreact. Okay, so we got just a couple. Actually, we've only got a couple more things here. We got so people. We're talking about stock buybacks. We're talking about airline bailouts. Then we're going to talk about just some stuff the Federal Reserve has done. Let's see. We are at how much time we're at? We're at 1:21. And we got 9 people on the stream. Overarching like Chathan. Thank you. Beautiful. Okay, thank you. Overarching. My sister just responded in the live stream. Thank you, sis. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about now. We're almost done here. We're going to talk about stock buybacks, and people are talking about the airlines and all this shit. So Matt Levine has a newsletter called Money Stuff. Again, I'm very upfront where I get my information, and I'm not an expert in this shit. There's smarter people than me. I'm not going to pass shit off as my own. Okay, someone smart. Most of the time, you're not the smartest about a certain topic, right? So why don't you just quote the people that are, or at least can explain it in a good way, and not that's okay. That's a noble thing. So anyway, Matt Levine has a newsletter called Money Stuff. I highly suggest you subscribe to it. It's really cool. It talks about financial stuff going on in the markets and stuff, but it puts it in a very interesting way, very plain language, and he explains it. And it's a fun read. It's a fun read. It's not dry. Okay, so he quotes the New York Times, and he says there are plenty of things this is referring to American Airlines, American could have done with all that money. It could have stored up its cash reserve for a future crisis. So American Airlines, just like most airlines over the last 10 years, has been doing a lot of stock buybacks. What that means is the company makes money. So you always hear that companies make money. They buy their own stock back. What does that do? That decreases the supply of stock in the market, and that in effect raises the price. That raises the price of the stock. So you've heard that a lot. With a lot of companies are doing that. With the money has been so cheap and interest rates so low that companies have been buying back their own stock, and that's part of the reason that stocks have been increasing in price a lot. So they're buying back their own stock. So there's 2 ways to give shareholders back money. Basically, you can give them back. So if I own a stock, if I own American Airlines, they can pay me a dividend for owning that stock. They're like, you're a shareholder here. Every shareholder gets $1 or 50 cents, or sometimes more. The Apple has given back 430 billion over the last 10 years in dividends and stock buyback. I think in dividends and. In dividends, they do both, but I think the 430 billion is something like they've done that in dividends. Anyway, that's returning money to shareholders. The American Airlines have done the exact same thing, and now people are up in arms because they're looking for a bailout. Well, why are you looking for a fucking bailout when you bought back all your stock? Now, this is an argument. I think it's a little too early to get pissed at the airlines yet. Let's see how things play out. Let's not jump the gun. If I'm going to call someone a dick, especially on YouTube Live when you got at least 6 people on the stream, I'm going to make sure I've done my homework, and I'm sure I want to call someone out or a company out, because you don't want to just shoot from the hip when you're talking about the reputation of someone else or something else. Anyway, okay, so I'll go on to say, I'll go on. New York Times, again, this Matt Levine's quoting New York Times. So it might have tried to decisively settle its continuing contract disputes with pilots. This is talking about American Airlines, flight attendants, and mechanics. It might have invested heavily in better service quality to try to repair its longstanding reputation as the worst of the major carriers. Instead, American Airlines blew most of its cash on a stock buyback spree. From 2014 to 2020, in an attempt to increase its earnings per share, American spent more than $15 billion buying back its own stock. It managed, despite the risk of the proverbial rainy day, to shrink its cash reserves. At the same time, it was blowing cash on buybacks. American also began to borrow heavily to finance the purchase of new planes and the retrofitting of old ones to pack in more seats. As nearly as 2017, analysts warned of a risk of default should the economy deteriorate. But American kept borrowing. It has now accumulated a debt of nearly $30 billion, nearly 5 times the company's current market value. So in this time of business was going well, the $15 billion they used towards buybacks. They've managed to raise $30 billion in debt. Now you ask yourself, this is a company that now wants to come to the U.S. government and get fucking bailed out? It's an interesting question. Here's what Matt Levine says. He'll kind of temper your emotions here. So if you're in the business of making risky bets and you win a bunch of them in a row, the way to enhance your long-term value might be to take money off the table. So that's what the airlines did. The biggest U.S. airlines, this isn't just American Airlines, the biggest U.S. airlines spent 96% of free cash flow last decade last decade on buying back their own shares. And this isn't just American firms. This is also EasyJet is talking about doing a dividend payment or something. I saw a tweet. They're doing like a dividend payment, even though they're also asking for government assistance. So they're trying to, on one hand, they're asking the government, the fucking taxpayers, for money. And on the other hand, they're ready to give money to their shareholders. It's a pretty insane thing. But okay, so here's what Matt Levine says. Again, this is from Matt Levine's Money Stuff newsletter. I'm quoting him here. I submit to you that if you ran American Airlines and knew the future, and you knew COVID was going to happen, you'd spend just as much on buybacks as American actually did. The buybacks were optimal. Spending money on other stuff, better planes, or labor relations, or customer service would not have insulated America from its current problems. Hoarding the money would have, but not completely. None of those things would have created as much long-term value for shareholders as just giving them money and letting bondholders, or fine, the government, hold the bag. If you're in the business of making risky bets and you win a bunch of them in a row, the way to enhance your long-term value might be to take money off the table. So he's saying that even if these airlines knew that COVID was coming, that the best thing for them to do was still to buy back shares and increase value for shareholders. Now Milton, Milton Friedman has an interesting post on he has that famous thing. I think it was in New York Magazine that basically says the sole job of a company is to make money for shareholders. Full stop. It's not to be good for the world. It's not. It obviously has to act within the laws. He's not advocating breaking any laws, but the sole job of a company is to make money for shareholders. So by that definition, so American, and by the way, that sounds like a money grubbing thing. If you make good products and you operate the business well, that will increase. The incentives are aligned, right? That will increase. It'll be better for consumers. Well, in this case, generally it will be better consumers. In this case, it wasn't. The airlines are cucking us, and American was spending money on shoving more seats into more planes rather than settle disputes with their pilots, settle disputes with their employees and shit like that. But that's the idea anyway. So anyway, we'll see what package the U.S. government gives these airlines. I don't really know. We'll see. It's a little too early to dog on them. They probably will get a bailout. We'll see. But here's something I like to I encourage people to think about. So I kind of have a fundamental belief that, if you're pissed off about bailouts, and I think there's very good reason to be pissed off at bailouts. I think, in 2008 when we bailed out some of the banks, the taxpayers bailed out the banks. There's a reason that there's an argument to be made that it should have been done. Should it not, or had it not been done, it could have tanked the economy even more than it already was tanked. So there's an argument to be made that yes, maybe we should, there are cases when things need to get bailed out. But if the government's going to bail your ass out, it's like, are you going to manage the company as well as you think as well as you can? Are you going to save as much cash? Are you going to prepare for a crisis if the government, the taxpayers are going to bail you out? It's an interesting incentive nightmare. But here's the thing: to get exposure, to get some exposure to these fucking bailouts, like if you just, and again, not everyone can afford to have. Put it this way: if I'm a taxpayer, I'm a hell of a lot more angry with bailouts, or at least definitely more, worried about them. If I'm a taxpayer that cannot afford to put money away in the equity markets, in the stock market. So if I'm a single mom, single parent, or if I'm not even a single parent, I'm in a situation where I don't have much free cash flow. Literally, all my money is going to feed my kids and feed myself and put a roof over my head. Plenty of Americans don't even have any money in the stock market. I think over half don't even have a retirement. Most people are exposed, or a lot of people are exposed to the stock market through 401k, through their retirement. But a way to get less pissed off about these bailouts is if you own, if your money's in the stock market, right, then if it's like in an index fund or something, or you own a large piece of the economy, you benefit at least partly, at least more than someone that doesn't have any money in the stock market when these companies get bailed out, right? Because it's going to increase their market cap, and airlines represent a decent chunk of the economy, and as long as their share prices stay up, that means your 401k is going to do better. I'm not saying this is good. I'm not saying it's a good way to think about it. I'm just saying if I'm a taxpayer that has no shares in these companies, and then my fucking tax dollars are going to bail them out, yeah, I'm more pissed off. And listen, the world isn't fair. I think people get caught up in trying to scream and trying to. It's noble to try to fix things. I'm not saying don't try to fix things, but like I see it with politicians. People spend so much energy on trying to get a certain politician in the White House or in the Senate or as a representative or as a mayor or as a governor. If you spent some of that energy on yourself instead of on this particular politician, spend some of that energy on yourself. Try to better your own position. Um, uh, that will always be the single greatest lever you can pull. Don't rely on someone bailing your ass out. Now that's easy for me to say. That's easy for a lot of people to say. If you're going bankrupt from fucking healthcare, you want someone like Sanders in the White House. Now I get that, but I just think there's a balance, right? It's a matter of perspective. There's a balance. It's possible to spend too much energy on something, even if it's the right thing to do. So operating on the assumption the world is not fair. The world is not fair. Figure out how can you hack it. Well, if you're pissed off at the practices of companies that are making too much money and they're exploiting their workers, well, buy shares, put money in the stock market. Now all of a sudden, all that corporate greed or whatever is actually making you money. Now, it's better to fix the issue, right? We want companies that aren't just for profit, but are for creating doing good things for the consumers, which aren't always the same thing. Doing good things for the world, yada yada yada. But if you spend their whole time trying to fix everything and yell at everyone, just a lot of the things in this world are not going to fucking change. Okay, so think about how can you hack it a little bit. So if you're pissed off about big businesses, buy some, get some equity in them, and profit off of them, and then if you've got some money, it's better to do that than to you can spend a hell of a lot of energy protesting every day to fucking prevent the airlines from getting bailed out. And yeah, that's a noble thing, but why don't you buy some fucking shares and profit off of it? That's kind of that's kind of where, or instead of trying to get a politician elected, like spend some energy on yourself to try to fucking better your own position, better the position of your friends and family. We need a balance here, and I think people get that a little bit out of whack too much. Okay, so but yeah, we'll see what happens with the airlines. We'll see what they do. We'll see. Obviously, when the banks were getting bailed out, then their CEOs were fucking getting caked out, like bonuses, golden parachute shits. It's a nightmare. I'm not advocating for that for 1 second. And frankly, if you're a shareholder, a lot of the things that this managerial class does is take money from the company and give it to themselves with crazy CEO compensation. There's actually, anytime the CEO is making a shit ton of money, you're getting a shit ton of stock, they're taking that money from the shareholders. So yes, there are plenty of reasons to be angry. But we'll see what happens with the airlines. I'm watching it. I'm curious about it. Anyway, so money stuff. Matt Levine also had a newsletter on March 16th. It was called "Markets Are Down for a Reason." And he had a couple interesting things with regards to the Federal Reserve System. So he said, I think the general model applies pretty broadly. Beyond just stock market circuit breakers, the basic approach to stabilizing financial markets is about averting panic. People have a history in financial markets of overreacting to stuff, and financial markets tend to be fragile under that sort of reaction. A few bank loans go bad. People run to the banks to get their money out. The banks don't have enough money. They have to sell assets rapidly at fire sale prices. The system collapses, etc. The problem is not as much that the loans went bad, but that the follow-on panic collapsed the system. So it is a delicate balance. So he goes on to say, and so the basic crisis management tools of central banking are about averting those systemic consequences by reducing panic and fire sales in the banking system. Classically, if people all want to withdraw their money from their bank accounts, the central bank will lend banks enough money to give them all their money back. So the banks don't need to call in loans and propagate the panic. More broadly, in modern systems, if people all want to withdraw their money and their financial assets and keep it in cash, the central bank will fund or buy the financial assets so their prices do not collapse. Eventually, things will get back to normal. The assets will recover their value, and the central bank will get its money back. That's important. The central bank will get its money back. I think a lot of people think when the bailouts happened, the automotive industry got bailed out, that ultimately got paid back. But sometimes you need to keep the system going. You give, the government's got to step in. I mean, I'm a big believer in letting the market do what it do. But it'd be it's a hell of a situation to say I mean, super smart people. I don't even think Republicans right now, or even people in. Oh wait, I mean, Bush passed the first stimulus package. People think that wasn't like some wing grab. You know what I mean? That TARP asset relief program, that I forgot the TARP. The TARP thing is the first thing Bush passed during the financial crisis, and then Obama just took over during the financial crisis. It's an interesting, it's an interesting thing. But you've let all these firms fail, and you go total free market. Well, then what's going to happen is a lot of things going to go to shit. So there's an interesting balance there. I forgot. I heard on a podcast that someone said a government is basically just a giant insurance company. You pay into it, you pay taxes, and it just is there when basically for when shit hits the fan. It's an insurance company. Anyway, there's a couple things. Here. Board of Governors. Okay, so again, the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, they have a website. They have all these memos they're putting out. I encourage you to go read them. I'm going to link to them in the show notes, but I encourage you to read them because they tell you exactly what the Federal Reserve is doing, right? The central bank of the United States. So I'm going to a little bit about the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, provides the nation with a safe, flexible, stable monetary and financial system. I like reading mission statements. They get me fired up. The objectives as mandated by the Congress in the Federal Reserve Act are promoting: 1, maximum employment, which means all Americans that want to work are gainfully employed, and 2, stable prices for the goods and services we all purchase. In this way, the Fed's monetary policy decisions truly affect the financial lives of all Americans, not just the spending decisions we make as consumers, but also the spending decisions of businesses about what they produce, how many workers they employ, and what investments they make in their operations. So I'm just going to go through a few of the things the Federal Reserve, the central bank, has done this past week, and it's pretty interesting. So you may have heard, okay, the committee decided to lower the target, and I'm just quoting them from some of their memos. So the committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate to 0 to 0.25%. It's the first time interest rates have been 0 in the United States. The European Central Bank has currently negative 0.4% interest rates right now. Imagine negative interest rates. That means you pay the government to hold your money. Imagine that. The committee will increase its holdings. The committee will increase its holdings of Treasury securities by at least $500 billion, and its holdings of agency mortgage-backed securities by at least $200 billion. The committee will also reimburse all principal payments from the Federal Reserve's holdings of agency debt and agency mortgage-backed securities in agency debt and agency mortgage-backed securities. In addition, the open market desk has recently expanded its overnight and term purchase agreement operations. And I like this last one because it's showing cooperation among central banks all over the world. The Federal Reserve announced measures related to the discount window, intraday credit, bank capital and liquidity buffers, reserve requirements, and in coordination with other central banks, the U.S. dollar liquidity swap line arrangements. Now, I don't know what a lot of this stuff means, I'll be honest, but the U.S. dollar liquidity swap line arrangements, they're working with other central banks all over the world. They announced earlier in the week that they're working with some of the big ones, and then later they're working with some of the other ones. But basically, to keep work together to keep liquidity going, keep the system running. We'll see. It's looking like right now that they're reacting faster than they did during the global financial crisis, which is an interesting thing. I mean, that shows, I think, we're learning how to react to things, and we're doing things faster than the Federal Reserve is now doing more than it's ever done. Quantitative easing is still a new thing, which is the government buying securities to keep prices up. So we're in a kind of a brave new world of all this stuff. So it's an interesting. We're in the middle of it. We're gonna keep doing this once a week. I try to release these on. So we're wrapping up here, people. I appreciate y'all coming by. We got 8 people on the chat. Newhouse, appreciate. Oh, damn, Newhouse joined. Chathan, love you boys. Really appreciate you guys coming on. Okay. Yes, I'm gonna try to do again. I try to do this once a week. Give me feedback. Let me know. Dick@nogradient.com. Also Instagram, Dick C. Lucas. I'm on Twitter. The newsletter, all the information I'll put in the Fukin show notes. So you can get all that stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna do this. Try to do this by Monday. Basically, by Monday morning, this will be released, and it'll be ready for you. Hopefully before that, but that's going to be the cadence, so we can get used to this. We can form a relationship together, and we can hang out, and we can riff on this stuff. And I'm not going to be right about everything, and I promise to do my best. I promise to quote the right source material. I promise to give my best effort on this stuff, because this is stuff hard. I mean, I'm shooting from the hip here. There's covering a lot of things. There's things that are going to be wrong, and I promise that if I am ever egregiously wrong about something, or not even egregiously so, but wrong about something, I'll bring it up in the next show. Call me out, please. Call me out, please, please, please. That's the whole point of this. We're learning here. I'm learning doing all this. I do this as a learning exercise for me, selfishly. Thank you, Charlie Finley, my boy, my producer. He's on the team. I love it. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by a YouTube live stream. So I think I'll probably do the live stream on Saturdays, about noon Eastern. 11 Eastern. We'll see. It was just an experiment this time. I'll still publish the separate video. We got the recording right there. And thank you, seriously, everyone, so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. This is super fun for me. I love doing it. I love hanging out with you guys. Let me know how it goes. Please, also share this out. The single best thing you can do with this is let a homie know about it. If you think someone's going to be interested in all the things I'm covering here, text a homie about it, email a homie about it, tweet it out. Go on Facebook. Just get the word out. That's the single best thing you can do to support me and Charlie working on this, and we really appreciate it. So, buses, cars, and airplanes leaving, smell the fumes of gasoline, and come to find the refuge, and I come to find the silence in you. The silence that you gave me. It's okay when there's nothing more to say to me. And oh wow, damn, I can hear my own voice. Okay, shit, just trying to wind up there, baby. Love y'all. Peace, easy silence, Dixie chicks. One love. Stay strong, stay focused, be strong for your family, be strong for yourself. We are living in history. Take it day by day. Do what you gotta do. Take care of yourself, take care of your Grammy, take care of your Grampy, take care of your family. Let's do this, baby. Let's get through this together. Let's fucking do it. Whew. Oh. Okay. So we're good. We got 7 people left on the live stream. Okay. Any feedback while we're here? Anyone feedback? I just ended the podcast stream. I just ended the. I'm not recording this anymore, so I'll still publish that podcast. But any feedback? I don't know if anyone's still in the chat. My homies might have stopped listening, but God bless you for even shooting from the. Damn, someone username shooting from the dick in here. Jesus, that's actually legit. Should be an insurance company for the little guy too, not just the big corporations. Wow. My mom's chiming in on here. Okay, does anyone have any feedback here? While we're here, anything? Because it looks like no one's in the chat anymore. Yeah. Okay, well, we're good here. If you have any feedback, peace out, Dick. McKinsey, Mac, dude, appreciate you joining in, Brother B. So I'm going to try to do this whole stream thing, keep it going. Appreciate you stopping by. When you read things, I talk a little more slowly. So my sister says talk a little more slowly. I hear that. It's funny because Mac says has reached out and says, dude, don't talk more slowly. Okay, audio broken. Yes, I should have mentioned this throughout the thing. So the audio is currently only from my computer. So the audio is only from my computer. So the mic isn't hooked up to my computer. The mic is when I release the podcast. When I release the podcast, that's the good audio. On this, it's just from my computer, so it's dog shit. It's dog shit audio. I'm gonna figure out how to fix that. I don't know how to fix it right now. I appreciate that. Speak more. Yeah, speak maybe a little more slowly. Okay, we're all geniuses here. I love it. What up, Jathan? Seriously, guys, everyone that literally that came by and stopped in the stream, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. I seriously do. I really appreciate this. I don't know, I think we got up to like 10 people at once. That's an amazing thing. In a number of billions and millions, we forget that even just 10 people is fucking chill. So this was chill. I love you guys. Reach out. All the homies in here have my number if you have any feedback or anything like that. This was epic. This was fun. And I will try to get that audio fixed. But okay, I'll love you all. Thanks for joining, my fucking people. Okay, peace out. Ending the stream. Y'all are my people. One love. Have a great rest of the weekend. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Take care of your loved ones. Let's do this. Mwah.